Hi, this is CSProfessorPam with Jumpstart Code, and we are continuing to learn about JavaScript functions. We have done several examples that showed how to use the basic function syntax and how functions can have no inputs or one input or multiple inputs, and how they can also have outputs. I want to do a simple example. I want to talk about a type of function, a very common function. Suppose I need an application that is going to, I'm going to input a number and it's going to tell me if it's even or odd. Before you can do this, you have to think about, well, how do I know whether a number is even or odd, right? If I ask you, is the number 10 even or odd, you tell me even. If I ask you if the number 55 is even or odd, you tell me odd. But to make a computer do it, we have to understand what's going on in our head when we do that. So what's the definition of an even number? An even number is a number that when you divide it by 2, there is no remainder. So there is an operator in most programming languages, and in JavaScript, it is the %. This operator is the modulus operator. And what it does is it gives you the remainder when you do integer division. So if I say 10 mod 2, this is like doing the integer division problem, 10 divided by 2, and you get this, and there is 0 remainder. So 10 mod 2 is 0. If I do 55 mod 2, then if I do 55 divided by 2, I get this, and I get 7, right? And this number is the remainder. There's a remainder of 1. So it's telling you basically, can you make, an even number of groups of 2, or do you have 1 left over when you're trying to make groups of 2? And if this answer is 0, then that tells me the number is even. If this answer is 1, that tells me the number is odd. So we're going to write a function called isEven, because its job is going to be to tell me basically yes or no whether or not a number that it receives as an input, so that means it receives an input here called num, I want it to return to me a value of true if even, or a value of false. So true and false are if odd. True and false are actually like constants, keywords that you can use. All right, so again, this is a pretty common type of function to write. So let us practice with that. So I'm going to make a function called isEven. Again, the way you name your functions can make your code sort of self-documenting, like it's kind of explaining itself by the names that you provide to your variables and your functions. So this function needs to return true if num is even, return false if num is not, right? So again, this could be done in one line, but I want to kind of break it down into steps. So I'm going to say let remainder equal num mod 2. So that's going to show me what the remainder is. And as a matter of fact, if I'm just testing this out and I'm not exactly sure about this, then let's take a look and see what we're getting. So I'm going to say console.log remainder is right, and I just actually want to move all of this so that we can more easily see what we're doing here. All right, so I am I don't need this. I'm testing is even. So let me call is even and pass it 10. Now eventually it's going to return something, but right now I don't have a return statement, right? Right now I'm just trying to make sure that using the mod function in this way is going to be the algorithm that I need in order to do this. All right. Oh, I've got a syntax. That's because of these comments that I put in here. So let me just, yeah. That's because of that one. All right, let's try again. No problem. All right, so look, I got remainder is 0. But if I'm really testing it, I need to test it with an odd number as well, right? So if I put in 7, for example, then I'm expecting to get 1, right? When you test things, you need to already have an expectation of what's supposed to happen. You're just trying to verify that things are working. So that means you have to have an expectation of what the answer should be. All right, so we understand now that the mod function is giving us what we want. So I need to return a true or false. Now I'm going to do this a couple of ways. I'm going to first of all do it sort of the longer way. I can say if remainder is equal to 0, right? Remember the double equals, then I want to return true, right? Else I want to return false. All right, now that it is returning something, then we need to look at what is being returned. So here I can console log what I'm getting back from this one. I can console log what I'm getting back from this one. And sometimes when I do this, when I'm testing multiple cases, I'm going to do something like this. This one should be true, right? This is like I'm creating test cases for myself. And this one, I know the answer should be false, right? So let's see if that's what we get, right? So look, true, and it was supposed to be true. When I did the other test case, false, and it was supposed to be false. So this is all working. This is working exactly as I want to. And maybe we'll actually put a quick little front end on this. But I want to show you a much easier way to code this. So a couple things here. The first shortcut I'm going to tell you is, in this case, you don't need the else. If I coded this way, because I have two different return statements, right? Then let's say that I put in a value of 10 for num. So that means 10 mod 2 is 0. So this is going to be, does 0 equal 0, which is true. That means I go into this action, and if I do, the minute I see the word return, that is an exit out of this function. So this statement down here will never execute if this condition is true. If this condition is false, if I put in a value that's odd and this condition is false, then that means we skip the action that is here and what's left is here. So in this particular case, because there are two different returns, whether or not I actually put an else here doesn't matter. But the much shorter shortcut here is I can do this. I can say return. Let me actually not delete what's here. Let me comment out so you can still see what we had. So I can actually say return remainder equal 0. Now let's think through what this is. This is a Boolean expression. So this is an expression that is going to be true or false, right? If the number was even, then this expression is going to be true, and that's what I want the answer to be. If this number is odd, then this expression is going to be false, and that's what I want the answer to be, right? So this is called refactoring my code. Once I kind of did it the brute force way to make sure that it works, then now I can simplify it. And we could simplify it even more here, right? We could actually just say, I could do it in one line. Return num mod 2 equal 0. So we can do the modulus operation here. That is going to give me back an answer that's going to be either 0 or 1. And if it's 0, then that means the number is true. So that's going to return true. If not, it's going to return false. Right? So it's still working. So suppose we want to make a quick little front end on this. I'm going to pause my video and just type up the front end and then come back and show you how we're going to call this function to use it. Okay, so I hope you tried to add a little front end. I added a little front end to this so that the user is able to input a number. So I used an input element. I gave it a type of number so we can make sure that it's going to be a number. I gave it an ID, so I'm able to reference it, and a placeholder. I have a button that is saying the ID is check. It's going to say, is it even? And I have a place to put the answer. And I did a little bit of styling. I used Flexbox to align these things in a column. So I ended up with something that looks like this. All right, so what do we do if we want to create this little app? So first of all, I want to make sure that and all these other functions are not bothering anything here. They're only going to get called, remember, they're only going to get activated if they're called, right? So what do we have to do first? So first we have to set up the click event for our button, right? I need to set up click event for the button. So, and I called it check, add event listener. When I click it, I'm going to call a function called check if even, right? So that's going to be the name of my function. So let's create that function here. Check if even. Okay. We want to make sure that this is connected to our button. So let's do a quick little check to see if that's working. When I click here, right, I get checked. So that means that this is in the right place. Everything is connected. All right, so what do we need to do? We need to get the number from the input box, right? So let's, we're not going to change it, so I'm going to use constant. Number equals get element by ID. And did I call it number or num? I called it num. Okay, always double check. Dot value, remember? And we do want to parse it, even though I'm restricted to a number. Everything that comes from a text box is considered a string. So look, let's double check. Num is, this is key. is checking things step by step as you go along. It's a lot easier to find and fix problems at this point, right? Put in a number, click the button, right? So I put in a 5 and the number is 5. All right, so now we're going to use our isEven function here to actually display our output. So, and my output is going to go in this ID, this H2 element that has an ID of output. So I'm going to show you guys something kind of interesting here. All right, let me do document get element by ID output. Dot text content equals, I want to say the number is. So I'm going to change up this function a little bit to show you guys something a little different. Let's say that instead of this function returning even a 0 or a 1, let's say it returns actually the words even or odd. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. I want to show you something else. We're going to talk about a ternary operator here. So I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it answer equals, and I am going to use what's called the ternary operator here for an if statement. So I'm going to call isEven, pass it number. If that is true, so this is a question, if that is true, then my answer is going to be even. If it is false, my answer is going to be odd. What I've just done, and I can't remember that I've shown you guys, but this is a shortcut way to write an if statement. This is saying if this expression is true, then this is what is going to be assigned to answer. Otherwise, this is what is going to be assigned to answer. All right, and let's just see this. If we want to double check this, let's look and see what we get. I'll just put answer here. And I don't need this one anymore. All right, so if I put in 55, look at the word. The word is odd. If I put in 56, the word is even. So again, this is just another way of writing. If I want to write this as an if statement, my if statement would have been if isEven, and we call number, right? If that's true, then I was going to say answer equals even, else answer equals false. But look how much simpler I wrote it. And notice, because this function returns a true or false, I don't have to say equals true, right? Because it is returning a true or false. And so this is a shortcut way. The question mark here is right after the condition, and then the first thing is what you do if it's true, then you have a colon, and you have what you do if it's false. So now we can say here, I can use my backtick and say, and put in the number is, and we'll put in my answer. So I need another $ answer. So here's what I have. So if I put in 22, I get 22 is even. If I put in 101, I get 101 is odd. And we have just made a little application here. And notice we are using two functions. This function is doing the work of deciding whether the number is even or odd. And then that means this function gets to stay very small and clean. Its job is just to get the input and then to figure out, to call the function and use it to figure out what to display as the output. Okay, and this could be simplified even more. This whole expression here could be plugged into here, but we're not going to do that right now. So again, we've got a complete little application with some user input, with a button, a little bit of styling here, just to do a little bit of practice with flex. And we have two functions, the function that gets called when the button is clicked, and then the other function whose job is just to decide if the number is even or odd. All right, so that's a really good start on our road to functions here.